Hello everyone and welcome to Salesforce Unlock. Today in this slide I will be going to cover control statements in Apex. So now that we have learned about a variables and operator, let's see how we can control the flow of our program using the control statements. Control statements helps us makes decisions. It executes the code repeatedly and it manages the flow of execution. So let's look at the most commonly used control statements in Apex. So the first one is the if-else statement. The if-else statement is used to make decisions based on conditions. So if the condition is true, then the first block, which is the if block, executes. Otherwise, the control passes to the else block, and the else block executes. So it is used for like branching multiple conditions. So in that case, we also use else if block if we want to branch more than two conditions. So the next one in the list is the switch statement. So Apex provide a switch statement that tests whether an expression matches one of several values and branches accordingly. So for example, we have a status value called as approved. So we can pass this value as an expression to the switch statement, and inside a switch statement, it will check if that expression matches several values, like if the status is approved, rejected, or else it is pending. So in this way, switch statements make code cleaner than multiple if else conditions. The next one in the list is the for loop and for each loop. So there are traditional for loops, which is used when you need to execute a code a specific number of times, or you need to manipulate an like index counter during the loop. So the traditional for loop consists of three parts, which is initialization, an exit condition, and the increment. So we will cover this in a demo. The next one is the for each loop. So for each loop works in Apex on list and set iteration. So it allows you to easily iterate through collection of items sequentially. It automatically grabs each item one by one, allowing you to execute a block of code on like every element without any index counters. So in for each loop, the index counters, we don't need the index counter. It iterates on the collections. The next one in the slide is the while loop and do while loop. So the while loop continues executing as long as the condition remains true. So here we need to be careful to update the condition, otherwise the loop may run indefinitely. So this is for the while loop. So next is the do while loop, uh, which is a control structure that executes a block of code at least once, and then it repeatedly evaluates a condition at the end of the loop and continuing only if that condition is true. So which means it will like execute the do block at least once, and it will evaluate the condition repeatedly. The next one in the list is the break and continue statements. So these are essential in a loop structure where the break statement is used when we want to exit from the loop immediately. So if you use a break statement in that, then the loop stops after a certain condition in break. And the next is the continue statement, which skips the current iteration and moves to the next one. So continue statements, instead of breaking the entire loop, it will just skip a particular condition and will move on to the next iteration. So this is all about the control statements in Apex. So for this demo, I will be creating a simple Apex class demonstrating all the control statements. So I will go ahead and create a new class called control statement demo. Okay, so now that our class is created, I will move ahead and write the code demonstrating every control statement. So first I will be writing a static method called run demo where I will be adding all my logic. So first one in the list we saw was the if statement, if else statement. So here I will need a integer variable, let's say score, and I will initialize the score variable. So in my if else statement, I will be comparing a score variable against a value. And if the value is true, if the score is greater than or equal to 50, then in that case, I will simply print the statement as passed, or else failed. So this is a simple if else branch. The next one which we saw in the slide was the switch statement. So, like I said, for a switch statement, we used an expression and evaluates against the value. So, in this case, I will be using an expression called as stage. I will be evaluating this expression against the values in the switch statement. So, for my demo, uh, I will be using the stage values of lead object. So, let's say in lead we have certain stages. We want to check and execute. We want to check the stage, and we want to execute a particular block based on the stage. So here I will add a switch statement like switch on stage, and inside the switch block, we will specify the expression condition against the expression. Let's say the first one is qualified. So if it's qualified, then I want to execute this block. I will add a debug statement like lead qualified. Again, I will match the expression value against the second uh, block, which is rejected. If the expression matches the value, we'll execute this block and we'll call it as rejected. In case there is no expression value, then in that case I want to print a default value. Then in that case I will use when else, and I will simply add a debug statement like it means the default state of lead is pending. So in this way we write the switch statement in Apex. The next one which we saw in the demo was the while loop. I will need a integer variable to iterate upon. So let's say I rename this variable as counter and I will initialize the counter as 1. Like we discussed, while loop evaluates until the condition is satisfied. So I want this counter to run until its value is less than or equal to 3. Uh, and I will simply print a debug statement and will print the counter value and will add this variable. Also, we need to increment the counter. So I will add this increment statement. So in this way, the while loop looks like. The next one which we saw was the do while loop. So here, this do block will execute at least once, and the while block is there just like in the while loop. Here I will also use a counter variable. I will give this name as count, and I will just print this in the debug statements. So this is a simple while and do while loop. The next one which we have uh, is the break statement. So the next one which we discussed was the for loop. So for this example, I will be using a traditional for loop. So like I said, inside a for loop, there we need to do initialization first. So here I am initializing a variable called integer1. Then the next thing is the exit condition. So I will run this for loop until I is less than or equal to 3. And the third one is the increment. So I will add I plus plus increment. And in this for loop, I will simply print uh, the for loop I variable. So this is the while, do while, and for loops we have in Apex. The next one which we saw was the break statement and continue statement. So for break statement, I will be creating one more for loop. So let's say I have a for loop and I have this variable like integer j equal to 1 and j less than equal to 5. I want to run it until the value of j is 5. And inside this for loop, I want to break this for loop once j's value equal to 4. So I don't want to execute the next step. So and I want to exit from this loop. So I will just add if j equal to 4, then I will break this condition. Until this time, I will print the debug statements as well, like break statement, example, and I will go and print the value of j. So in the break statement, the for loop will increment till j, and once j's value is 4, it will exit the loop. And the next statement which we saw was the continue statement. So I will be using the same for loop, and here uh, I will just modify this variable like k, and k. And here I will do one thing. Uh, I want to skip the condition when k's value is 3. So in this case, I will go ahead and add like if k equal to 3, then instead of break, I will add a continue statement. So it should skip the iteration for loop when k's value becomes 3, and will simply print the value of k inside the debug statement. So our Apex class is ready now. Okay, so now that our anonymous window has been executed, I will click on debug only and we'll check the result. So you can see the first one which we saw was the if else loop. So here score value is greater than 50. So in this case, it printed 5. Then we saw the lead qualified because in our expression statement, the value was qualified. So it printed lead qualified block. Then we have while loop counter. So you can see the while loop counter executed from 1 to 3. Likewise, we have our do while counter, which executed 0 as 0 is executed first. So this block executed first and then do while counter continued. Then we have for loop counter where we print three values for the for loop. Then we have the break statement. So so as you can see, after fourth iteration, we added the break. So when condition was the fourth iteration, the break statement worked and it exits the loop. So we have this debug statement print till 1 to 3. So it is like this. Then we had continue statement. So we skipped one condition where where the value of k is equal to 3. So we skipped this iteration. That's why the continue statement example uh, debug didn't print for condition 3 message and it printed 1, 2, 4, and 5. So in this way, the Apex control loops works. I hope this helps.
Thanks for watching Salesforce Unlocked. If you found this helpful, stay tuned for more Salesforce tips and tutorials. See you in the next video.